All right, so we're back in this very calm election season with some more legal discussion of hot-button political issues. As always, I want to remind you before we get started, we're just trying to provide some legal backdrop to what's going on and not taking a position on the political issues. I'm sure that will be carefully understood in the comments section that follows. Yesterday, a judge released a decision to dismiss the indictments against former President Trump that dealt with his alleged misappropriation of classified records. If you followed this, Special Prosecutor Jack Smith, who was appointed by the Attorney General to investigate Trump's use of classified documents after he left office, did an investigation, did pursue an indictment against the president, and that has been sort of lingering in the courts down there in Florida for some time as we've waited on a decision. The judge yesterday released her 90-plus page opinion on these issues and decided that it had to be thrown out. And the reason that took some people by surprise was that she found that the prosecutor was not properly instituted as a prosecutor, that his decision to prosecute this and his power to prosecute it had not been properly brought about under the Appointments Clause of the United States Constitution. It's not every day we get to talk about the Appointments Clause, so I'm going to take a second and read it to you. This is Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2 of the United States Constitution. And Article 2, if you recall, deals with the President of the United States. So this is what it says about the President. It says the President, in this case President Biden, shall appoint ambassadors, other public ministers and consuls, judges of the Supreme Court, and all other officers of the United States whose appointments are not herein otherwise provided for, and which shall be established by law. But the Congress may by law vest the appointment of such inferior officers as they think proper in the President alone, in the courts of law, or in the heads of departments. Okay, so in other words, this Appointments Clause says that the President of the United States gets to pick every officer of the United States. It also says that Congress sometimes has power with what we call inferior officers, we'll get to that in a second, to say that by law, beforehand, they can be picked by the President alone, by the courts, or by the heads of departments. All right, so in this case, Special Prosecutor Jack Smith was appointed by the Attorney General. He was chosen to go prosecute this, but he doesn't otherwise have a position that's been officially chosen. What this says is that the president should have had to select him and have him confirmed by the Senate, or if they can point to a statute, maybe the president can pick him alone, the head of a department like the Attorney General could pick him alone, or potentially the courts could pick him alone. But there is no statute that's authorizing this special prosecutor procedure. Special prosecutors have been very controversial in American politics for the last 40 or 50 years and controversial in American law. It's the idea that sometimes, ever since Watergate, if we have a president or people who work for him that we're concerned about, maybe they shouldn't get to investigate themselves. Maybe we should have a special prosecutor, somebody who isn't answerable to the president and to his advisors in investigating that alleged crime. Now, as straightforward as that sounds, the problem is it creates a real separation of powers issue. If Congress is able to just pick a prosecutor, why can't they just keep the president and the Attorney General out of all sorts of things? Our founding fathers were very concerned that we have separation of powers. And so they set up some things that the executive branch does, some things that the legislative branch does, some things that the judicial branch does. And so in this case, having a prosecutor who's chosen not by the president and not confirmed by the Senate is found to have violated that separation of powers. This is hardly the last we're going to hear of this issue. It's going to be appealed. We're going to have a circuit court, which is the court in between the trial level federal courts and the Supreme Court. A circuit court will now hear whether this is indeed a violation of the Appointments Clause of the Constitution or not, and I expect this case may be heard by the Supreme Court. For now, it means a long delay between this and any final trial on the issue of President Trump's use of classified documents after he left office. One final thought that will be interesting to see is whether in the interim the Attorney General's office moves to indict him in the regular course. Nothing here would have stopped the Attorney General or a United States attorney properly appointed, confirmed by the Senate, from moving forward with prosecuting the former president. The reason that this got messed up is they tried to designate somebody who isn't an official officer of the United States to do the prosecution.